If you're anything like me, you like learning new things. But the learning process is even more fun when I get to share all of the knowledge I'm learning with you. So today we're going to learn how to bake some bread here at Subway. It's going to be funny because I don't know the vocabulary they use for this, but I'm going to explain it to you from the perspective of somebody doing this for the very first time. We're going to start off with our baking sheet, and then it has a silicone mat on top of it that holds the bread in it that's going to control and make sure it grows the right way. If you're trying to figure out what these weird looking long breadstick things are, those are actually what's going to be our bread. You want to take the dough and make sure it spreads out to the end of these things, but you don't want to pinch it like I just did. What you actually want to do is you want to lift it up from the middle and kind of like stretch it by its weight. The reason why you don't want to pinch it is because you have to be careful not to cause any blemishes to it, because whatever is a small blemish right now, as the dough rises, it's going to become a large blemish and it's just going to be magnified. Make sure you flip them over so the round side is on top, and then you want to put your hands underneath it and kind of let it stretch itself out so it reaches the ends. While you do this, you want to make sure it stays in the middle of the little divot that it has for itself. As you can see, each sheet pan only holds 5 loaves of bread. That means you're going to have to make a lot of pans to keep up with the busy day. All of the bread on this pan is going to just be regular bread, but we have to cut these little slits in it so there's a nice design. Whenever it rises and then it gets baked, it's going to have these nice lines on it. They do offer this little training guard, but she let me know that I don't really need to use that. I can just make the lines myself, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Be sure to keep your fingers away though. This is a sharp blade. It will cut you just as easy as it's cutting this bread. They have a couple different kinds of bread, and we're going to practice making those in a minute, but first we need to put our 4 little lines on each of these loaves of bread. Once we've cut each of our lines into those, it is going to be time to spray them with a little bit of water. So you have this spray bottle, you're just going to spritz across it with a decent amount of water, but you don't want to drench them. As I said before, yes, we have to make a lot of these. So let's go ahead and start on the next ones. Hopefully we don't need any help this time because we're going to be pros. All right, here's a great example. You see that bottom piece of bread, you see the little ridges on it? We want to make sure that we flip them all over so that all those ridges are on the bottom, and then we want to spread them all out. Because though these look like little skinny breadsticks right now, they're actually going to puff up and rise to be the size of the little cubbies that they're in. Once you get good at doing this, it shouldn't take you like any time at all. You should be able to do it real quick. Remember, pull up, spread them out, then you're going to spray them a little bit of water, and then slice them across top 4 times. Now this time we're going to do something a little different. We're going to go ahead and put these inside some seasoning. Even though it's the same bread, it's going to have a different flavor because we're dipping it inside some Italian herbs. This is just the first step on making this kind of bread, so stay tuned to the end so you can see what we do to it next. To be honest, I hardly ever eat here, but if I was going to eat here, I would come here just to get this bread because this is my favorite one. This is going to be Italian herb and cheese. It's funny coming here to hang out with Malad. I didn't really know what to expect. I was staying with him at his house with his family, but they are awesome. Honestly, like, I loved this whole experience. It's been so much fun, and hanging out with his family. His parents are amazing. But I'm also reminded of how much hard work and dedication it takes to have a business and to run it well, and to run it as a family. It's truly a ton of work, and I just want to give them all props for all the hard work that they put in every day for this place. Going to all these new jobs, it just reminds me that when you go somewhere, you commonly forget that the person behind the counter helping you is also a human being with a whole story and a family and all those different things going on in their life. It's so important in life just to remember perspective, and also to be able to see from other people's perspectives. So if you're ever frustrated when you go into somewhere because somebody isn't doing something right, or they may be new and messing things up, just remember what it would be like to be in their shoes. That's what makes me so thankful for these opportunities, because when I go into new places and I work there and I get to share it with you guys, in a way I'm helping you do that. I'm putting myself into somebody else's shoes, into somebody else's job, and we're getting to see what it's like to live life through their perspective. Now that all of our dough is put in place and it's the way it's supposed to be, it's going to be time to go ahead and put them in the proofer. The proofer is where the dough is going to rise and get all nice and fluffy. I don't know a ton about bread, but I'm pretty sure it's just a warm area that's kind of humid that just lets the dough rise, but I could be wrong, so someone will probably correct me down in the comments below. Our first step is to go ahead and turn that on and then open it up, and we're going to load it up with all of our racks of dough. Each shelf in the proofer can hold 2 pans, and so we're going to go ahead and line them up so that they can all fit in there pretty well. The proofer is only warm, it's not like hot, so you don't have to worry about burning yourself, but definitely when we go to the oven, you want to be super careful with them because it's going to be very hot. So try to enjoy all the freedom and be able to touch whatever you want now, because when they come out of the oven, you're going to burn yourself if you try doing it like this. As you can see, we need to prep a lot of bread because we're going to go through a lot of bread. I'm sure you're a math genius, so I don't have to tell you the number, but if you'd like to tell me the number, how many pieces of bread did we just put inside the proofer? The thing is, we could even make more, but right now we don't need as much because if you look over here, we have a ton already ready. The life cycle of the bread is it comes in frozen, then it gets thawed out, then it goes into the proofer, and then it gets baked, and then it's going to look like this when it's all done and ready. Aren't you glad there's a thing called editing, because it's going to have to sit in the proofer for about 45 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and change our gloves, and then we're going to take them out because our 45 minutes is already up. All right, important part here is the bread is very warm, but it's not hot. It will not burn you, but just be mentally prepared because when you touch the pan, it is going to be warm. Remember when we sprinkled the Italian herbs on that bread earlier? Well, now we're going to sprinkle the cheese on it and finish them off. So this this is what's going to make it Italian urban cheese. And as I told you before, this is my favorite. If it were up to me, I would just coat this thing with cheese on top, but we're only supposed to just sprinkle a little bit, so you just go ahead and listen and you sprinkle a little bit. If you notice, the bread is massive compared to what it was like a few minutes ago when we just put it in the proofer. So you want to be very careful with it because right now it's risen, but it's not been baked. So it's not going to stay in that structure. So it's very temperamental. You don't want to touch it or bump it on anything because it'll mess it up and then it'll stay looking like that. If you look closely, you can also see the little slits that we cut into it. It created this nice little grooves on top and it makes it look really cool. All right, if you look closely, you can see how I'm picking up the bread. You want to make sure that your fingers slide in between where the bread's at on the pan so you don't bump it and cause any nicks on it. All while you're paying close attention to where it's at on the shelf so you don't hit the top of the bread on the shelf above it. I'm still just so amazed by how much these things grew. Like, these things doubled in size. No, they honestly, it's like 5 times the size. As you see, we didn't fill up the proofer all the way, but it was probably a good idea because now the oven is completely full. I don't think we'd have enough room for any more. Now we're going to close up both of these. We're going to turn off the proofer and then we turned on the oven. And I stand corrected. I do apologize to you. You want to actually leave the proofer open cracked a little bit so that all of that hot air and steam can just go ahead and sit out. Surprisingly enough, it actually doesn't take very long to cook the bread. It takes about like 45 minutes or so, I guess, for the bread to proof. But then for it just to bake, it's only about 10 minutes. So now that our bread is done, we're going to go ahead and put on our oven mitt because like I said before, it's going to be very hot. To be safe, we're going to use the tongs on our right hand to pull it down and then we're going to grab it with our left hand. If at any point this burning hot pan starts to fall on you, you just jump out of the way and let it hit the ground. You do not want to get burned. The bread can be remade, but you can't be unburnt. I mean, you can't be unburnt, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, jump out the way. Let that bread hit the ground. The bread is still pretty sensitive since it's hot, so you want to grab it the same way. You want your thumb to be nestled in between them so you're not touching them. You also want to be very careful you don't nick it into anything on the side, like I just did a few seconds ago. So if you want to see it, you can go ahead and rewind a second. I definitely just nicked the side of that bread on the cart. I think I'm doing pretty well for my first time and I'm not burning myself. So you want to use those tongs to pull it down, then you get your thumb in between there and then you balance it on your one hand and you're going to slide it right into the shelf there. It's so cool to see the fruits of our hard work. I mean, look at the little lines on the bread. It's kind of cool that that's one of the first steps that we did, and then now it makes this giant piece of bread have some lines on top. As you're pulling all these out, you also want to pay attention to your surroundings. You don't want to accidentally hit somebody else while you're doing this because you could drop it on yourself, or you could accidentally hit them with the burning hot pan, and you just want to be safe and careful. But you're doing a great job. Almost all of the bread is out and you haven't burned yourself or anyone else yet, so great job. I find the hardest ones to get out are these first ones because they're kind of stuck together. So you kind of pull one pan, it starts to bring the other pan out a little at you, and it's a little scary. And then you get to this point here where it's like halfway out but halfway in, and then it could fall off on you, but you have to get your thumb in the right spot so you don't mess up the bread like I just did right there and punch a little hole in the bread. But at the end of the day, if there's a few mistakes made, it's going to be okay. It's just bread. Somebody's going to eat it. It's not that big of a deal. Thank you so much for making it to the end and making this bread with me. It's always fun when I get to do stuff with you. They always say the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. All right, here it is. It's the end. You earned it. Our emoji of the day is going to be the bread emoji. Throw the bread emoji down in the comments below so that I know that you're a real one and you made it all the way to the end. This was so fun, but